I will introduce the causes and disadvantages of becoming addicted by consumption behaviors such as social media, games, fast food, alcohol, gambling, and pornographic videos. I will show you how to regain your life by breaking away from addiction. I think that there are many people who want to quit consumption behavior but cannot. You don't have to blame yourself because it's natural. Addiction and strength of will are not related. The real cause of addiction is the destruction of brain function. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter in the brain. It is sometimes called a pleasure substance because a lot of dopamine is secreted when humans get pleasure. Dopamine also affects motivation and memory of things, learning, behavior and awareness, sleep and attention. Therefore, stable motivation can be maintained by secreting dopamine moderately. This dopamine is secreted when you achieve something or get a reward. The structure of the human brain has not changed much since the Homo sapiens era. However, entertainment and luxury goods such as SNS, games, cigarettes, alcohol and sugar, porn videos, it was born veer. So the human brain cannot apply to these exciting rewards. And if dopamine is secreted excessively beyond the amount of reward humans can get, the dopamine receptor will be destroyed. This is also called a dopamine receptor and plays a role in accepting secreted dopamine. The brain secretes dopamine, and the combination of dopamine and receptors gives humans a sense of reward. However, if excessive dopamine secretion continues, dopamine receptors are destroyed and the total number of receptors decreases. In addition, chronic drug abusers reduce the number of times dopamine binds to the receptor. If dopamine and the receptor do not bind, you cannot get pleasure. Therefore, the amount of dopamine secretion necessary to obtain pleasure increases. The destruction of dopamine receptors increases the amount of dopamine secretion required for pleasure. And to get pleasure, more experience and rewards are required. Then, by taking more consumption behavior, people secrete more dopamine and try to get pleasure. However, since these are short-term pleasures, their effects do not continue. Therefore, after a certain period of time, the dopamine guard declines and the willingness to work on things declines. If you move away from these actions for a longer period of time, dopamine is no longer secreted and you will have withdrawal symptoms. As a result, you will be frustrated, anxious, and you will feel depressed, poor physical condition and depressed. After all, when people do consumption behavior again, they secrete dopamine and temporarily get pleasure. However, the pleasure of consumption behavior does not last long because of the short-term dopamine secretion. For this reason, it falls into the negative spiral of repeating consumption behavior that can easily get pleasure. Common to these is consumer behavior. Consumption behavior can easily secrete a lot of dopamine with little effort. However, if pleasure rises abruptly, then the pleasure will suddenly decline and withdrawal symptoms will appear. So the negative spiral of repeating the same consumption behavior does not stop. To stop this consumption behavior, it is necessary to restore dopamine receptors. This suppresses excessive dopamine secretion due to consumption behavior. Human natural dopamine works through productive behavior. This restores brain receptors and receptors. This eliminates excessive secretion of dopamine and restores the original hormonal state. The mental state of the person is stabilized, and the withdrawal symptoms, such as anxiety, frustration, and depression, are alleviated. Therefore, consumption behavior that secretes excessive dopamine must be stopped. However, it is impossible to overcome addiction with the power of will. Even if you understand that it is no good, you cannot control or stop.